Howdy, folks. This is Robert with Block's Sonic Wafers, and I'm here today to jump into a contest for Michael over at Poetry on Plastic for reaching 20 Brazilian subscribers. I'm still working on hitting 3,000. I'm at 215 as we speak. And I want to say thank you to all my new subscribers. I hope you find something worthy of your time on my channel. I certainly get some good information from Poetry on Plastic. And anyway, he's got a contest here in tribute to his latest subscriber numbers. And the first item on that list is to show a classical record. I have, pardon me, I have heard several folks say, and I am one of those, I don't have a ton of classical music in my collection, but I have some, and I have picked out of that this lovely box of a Verdi Requiem by Fritz Reiner and the Vienna Philharmonic. Also has the Society of the Friends of Music in Vienna chorus. This is on RCA Victor. Beautiful artwork. It has more artwork in the libretto. There are some lovely paintings in here, and there's Fritz Reiner himself. Let me find the pages we want here. Okay, so there's more beautiful art. Wondrous sound the trumpet fingeth, through earth's sepulchres it ringeth, man from the dust regained. You know, a lot of classical music came to me through my subconscious via inactive listening, through a lot of unexpected sources, which I'm sure many of you all are familiar with. Bugs Bunny, Looney Tunes. This is on RCA Red Label in very minty condition. Living stereo. So I don't really have anything in the way of audiophile current pressings until we get into a few classical SACDs, which I will address later in number 6, I believe it was, the editorial section. So there is my classical entry. It's not my only classical album on vinyl. I have several box sets actually, and I enjoy thoroughly. And over the years, just like the classical music through Bugs Bunny, I have found, again, without being aware of it, that I appreciate classical choral works. So I have been picking up a lot of choral pieces. I've got a box set of Bach's choral works. And boy, on a morning with a cup of coffee. I love putting those on. So that is number one in the contest entry. Okay, we are back. What you just heard was a little piece called Madness, and it is by Adrian Belew on his album called Side 1. Now, that is certainly not a representation of what the entire disc sounds like. It's likely the heaviest piece on here. Adrian did a series of albums. See, mine's signed. Side 1, Side 2, Side 3, and Side 4. Side 4 was live. The other three were all studio. Rather short. I think this is less than 30 minutes in length. But there's some good stuff in here. So I probably got some heavier stuff in my collection somewhere, but this is what I'm going with. This is my story and I'm sticking to it. Number 3, and this one I found a little difficult to understand because, you know, a band or album or artist that I have in my collection, because I'm a collector, uh, you know, I could just about do a blind draw and pull anything out of my collection and it would fit the bill. So I may not be exactly sure what we're going for here, but I decided to go with Feast of Wire by Calexico. And I have tried to pick up everything that I can by Calexico since this album is the one that got me started. I was drawn to Feast of Wire because they were played rather heavily on NPR. Public radio was using bits and pieces of this album. They were playing Sunken Waltz in its entirety here and there, and a song called Not Even Stevie Nicks. And I was curious and impressed by the music that I was hearing, so I went after this particular album. And then I started working backwards, and then I started working forward. And the cool thing about Calexico was they were slinging CDs out left and right of material that didn't make the albums, and they were calling them tour CDs and selling them when they were on the road. I have most of those. I don't know that I have all of them. They issued 11 of those on vinyl in a box set that I missed out on. Breaks my heart. I did not have the money at the time, and now if there's any out there, they are way out of my range financially. So if anybody out there has that Road Atlas box set that they want to send me as VCLT, just kidding. But this beautiful album, Calexico, is the name of a town that is half in California and half in Mexico, which pretty much describes the music. They're actually from Tucson, Arizona. Their music is kind of folk rock influenced by south of the border flavors. Sometimes they actually have bands from south of the border guesting on their albums, and it's great stuff. The two main guys, John Convertino and Joey Burns, have been a well-known rhythm section for other acts for a long time before they became Calexico. If you're familiar with Giant Sand, they were uh, in Giant Sand. So anyway, that's what I decided to go with. I'm not sure if it actually fits the bill for what the question is looking for, but that's my story and I'm sticking to it. Okay, we are up to number 4. Show a foreign record in a foreign language and or hopefully uh, made overseas. I'm afraid I'm switching over to CD for this particular one. And there's a story behind this one. I was in a group, we called it Tune Trade. It was born out of a group on Yahoo Groups, which was centered around Adrian Ballou, who we mentioned earlier. And as most groups around music on the internet do, eventually turn to a desert island disc conversation. Well, we got to a desert island disc conversation, and then we started talking about exchanging discs with music on it, and we decided that if we were going to do desert island disc type music on these CDs, then everybody would be sending each other pretty much the same stuff because we all pretty much had the same taste. Uh, so we decided actually to make it about artists that we think people should know about that probably don't. And we did about 17 rounds of that, and there was usually 20 to 24 people uh, participating in each round. And some people would do a double discer. And as we went along, people kept getting better at editing, artwork, really making a artful project of it. And they got better and better at it. And the way we worked it was we would choose for each round a central hub, a central scrutinizer, and everyone would make and edit their disc, and then they would make a number of copies to cover everybody participating, and they would mail that to the central hub. The central hub would collate all these discs and repackage them and send one out to each participating member. So it was a lot of work, but it was worth it. You'd get 24 to 30 some discs in the mail of music, and a whole lot of stuff you did not know. Uh, so I became fans of a lot of different musics that way, and that's how I discovered Porcupine Tree. Somebody included the song, what's the song about Muzak, and that grabbed me. So I got that disc right off the bat. I got it in surround sound. So anyway, we had one member in Tune Trade who lived in Mexico, and his name was Elandro. He has since passed away from a heart attack. But I was the central hub in this particular round, and it got to where everybody started throwing little gifts in for the hub because it was a lot of work, and no money involved or anything. So you would get little trinkets and things, and ale included in my box when I was a hub, this band. And that's who I'm going to use for my foreign artist, Cabezas de Serra. They are a Mexican progressive rock band. This is made in Mexico. Very elaborate package. You see it is cardboard, but it is embossed all over the place. And then it opens up this way and opens up some more this way. See, this is embossed. Has a beautiful booklet. I don't know if you can see, but it's got shiny copper print on there. The booklet has some beautiful artwork throughout. Music's good too. In the center, it's got a vellum. Folds out thusly. Keeps going and going. So they put a lot into this. Did a very nice job with the packaging, the music. It's a couple of brothers. He also threw in some stickers that are associated with Un Segundo is the name of the album. And even a postcard. Cabezas de Serra, Un Segundo. Materiales radioactivos. So if you're not familiar with these guys, I would recommend you check them out. It's some good stuff. Let's pull the disc out. And you see there's even stuff behind the disc in here. The label is CDC, ear audio. Don't know what CDC stands for. One of you might. So that is my submission for foreign artist. Okay, we're up to number 5. But first, I want to mention, if you can hear it in the background, you're listening to Luciferian Towers by Godspeed, You Black Emperor. And I was turned on to this band by Mike over at T-Cat's Deep Vinyl Tracks. And Mike, I appreciate that. Okay, we're up to suggestions for albums we'd like to see pressed on vinyl, but as far as I know have not been. And the first one I'm going to go with, and cover is a wee bit faded on this, Triage by David Bearwald. David Bearwald, if you're not familiar, was half of the David and David team of Welcome to the Boomtown. He has done some great stuff as a solo artist. He was also involved in what they called the Tuesday Night Music Club, which became the backing band for Sheryl Crow's first album, I'm sure you're aware. And he was a co-writer on a bunch of the songs on that album. But I consider this album to be reference quality as far as the uh, recording goes. And I like the fact that the album is all over the place as far as genre, styles, and such. There's some good acoustic stuff on here. The first song on here actually features Herb Alpert himself on trumpet. Uh, and then there's some music on here that gets a little heavier. Uh, they used a lot of different sounds on here, including a drill. Uh, but there's a lot of people that have not heard this record, and a lot of people really should hear this record. Uh, it's great. I don't know how to describe it otherwise. Uh, it's got the Hydra Head Octopus Blues on here. The Got No Shotgun Hydra Head Octopus Blues. Uh, AIDS and Armageddon, which was covered by, I forgot. I'll try to mention that in the notes here somewhere. And secondly, I would also like to see a vinyl version of Op Zop Tuwa, also by Adrian Belew, in case he hadn't got mentioned enough here. This is one of his best albums, in my opinion. And it's when he first started using his own artwork for his covers. So there is that. Those are my suggestions. Let's get those out on vinyl. And I'd like to see both of these done in 5.1. Which brings me to my letter to the editor. So, in my letter to the editor, I saw Michael's piece on SACD and an outboard DAC converter, which, basically the higher end equipment is just out of my range. I do have an Oppo, though. It's probably the lower end Oppo, but it serves me well. It has a good DAC in it and does the job. I have quite a collection of surround sound music in various formats. I've got quite a few SACD in stereo and in surround. I've got quite a few DVD audio. I've got music on Blu-ray, and I love it. I realize a lot of people have not really got into it, and some people think it's just a novelty, which is totally untrue. There are some novelty mixes out there. For instance, on Frank Zappa's Hollywood, Dweezil mixed Vinnie Colaiuna drum solo, moving around the room just for fun. But boy, it sounds great. It's not poorly done by any means. Flamin' Lips, Yoshimi. There's a lot of novelty stunts done in the 5.1 mix on that CD, but it's still great. I love that one. And you know, for the most part, there's several ways you can approach surround sound. Uh, but the main thing that I'm looking for is they put you in the middle of the studio and or auditorium for a performance so that the ambiance of the room is there three dimensionally. It's actually like you're hearing the stuff coming off the back wall as if you were there instead of just here and here. Uh, Now everything depends on the guy sitting there at the mixing desk when they do the mix for 5.1. In a lot of cases, we're talking about classic recordings that they're having to redo, and there's a lot of companies out there doing new recordings in 5.1. All of them are experimental because it's new technology basically, and just surviving on the very edge, if that. Uh, and that's why in my editorial I would like to beg people to give this thing a better chance. If you're spending all that money on equipment, why not give it a shot? I mean, I've seen people. Uh, this is what I don't understand. People putting home theaters in their house, very elaborate, nice seating, surround sound speakers all around the room for movies. Well, if you have that set up for movies, why not go ahead and do the music? You would really be surprised at the difference it can make in some of the recordings that you already love. Uh, you know, it, as I say, it doesn't turn it into a novelty. It just puts you there. Uh, I've spoken before about AIX Records. Those guys do nothing but new recordings in surround, and they record classical orchestras. They get the best microphones and they put them everywhere. They mic the orchestra, they mic the auditorium, above, below. They're experimenting, but they're getting great recordings. I like with their discs they give you an option to be in the audience or to be in the center of the band, uh, and that's pretty cool stuff. Uh, some, especially classical recordings, really can't give you much except for the ambiance of the room itself. The acoustics, they give you the acoustics by moving them where they belong in the room. Uh, and it really, really makes a listening experience like no other. I did mention that I was going to mention some more classical stuff that I have, and these are on SACD. I have some in other formats. This is Frank Bridge with Howard Shelley on piano, the BBC National Orchestra of Wales. Uh, they're doing the Coronation March, Phantasm Summer, Orchestra Works Volume 3. So there's that. It is in surround or stereo, your choice. Recorded in 2496. But this is where your DSD comes in. And if you love audiophile recordings, you'll love DSD. Farben der Stil, Ensemble Gelber Klang. This is also in surround. Toru Takamitsu. Colors of Silence. Music for organ, brass, and timpani recorded at St. Ignatius Loyola Church, New York. Anthony Newman, organist. The Graham Ashton Brass Ensemble with timpanist Duncan Patton. Tomita doing Ravel. Pavane for a Dead Princess. Mother Goose Sweet, Bolero. And this is from Vocalion or Vocal Lion over in the UK. Michael Dutton over there is the one doing all the surround sound mixing of these recordings and doing a fantastic job. Everything I have gotten from them has been nothing but incredible. Highly recommend. Now these are stereo only, but they are SACD. This is J.S. Bach Organ Works, Anton Heller Orchestra. I don't know if there's actually an orchestra behind him on here or not. I don't think there is. Vanguard Classics. And finally, but not the last thing I have, Vaughan Williams, Fantasia on a Theme by Thomas Tallis. Fantasia on Greensleeves. So that's that. If you haven't experienced surround sound, find somebody that's got a good system that has surround sound. Invite yourself over for a listening session and be prepared to be blown away. You know, I found a place not far from me that basically does home theater. And this is the thing that really surprises me. Most places that specialize in home theater don't do surround sound music. What? Well, this guy over there does, and he has a great setup, a great system, and he'll let you sit in there in a comfortable chair and, you know, listen to his music or bring your own music. He's got great audiophile equipment, turntables and such, and you know, he doesn't mind me bringing a disc over and just enjoying it, and I enjoy doing that just so I can get other people interested in the music and or the setup. I don't have a perfect system. I don't have a very expensive system, but I've worked for years to put together what I do have. It's not the worst, and it's certainly not the best, but it's somewhere in the median there, and it is very satisfying to me, and I like to do a lot of active listening, so I can sit there in the sweet spot and enjoy. Please don't let this format die out. Get out there and get involved, because it's going to be your next step in audiophile. It's the way I see it, if it doesn't die first. So thank you for listening. That's my editorial letter to the editor. Obviously Michael there is already into SACD. I don't know if he's got the surround sound set up at all, but you're missing out if you don't. I know some people have tried it and gave it up. I don't get that. You know, they didn't have it set up correctly, or they didn't have the decoder or something. They are missing something. But that's me. That's my opinion. I will keep grabbing hold of 5.1 surround stuff when it's available and or quadraphonic. I intend to get the 5.1 animals as soon as possible. And that's my entry into Poetry on Plastics uh, contest. And congratulations on 5 billion subscribers. I'm shooting for 3,000. That's it. Hope y'all are having a great day. Block out.